Alright guys, so I just finished making this time efficient training course that we're going to be launching very soon. I've also decided to give away basically the condensed version in an email crash course. You can get that for free completely. I understand a lot of people probably watching this don't even know who we are, but we PB Academy, we've been coaching for 10 years. We built a team of expert coaches as well, and we've worked with thousands of clients, got hundreds of transformations, hundreds of reviews. So it's all out there, you can check it, it's legit. We're not one of those people that just doesn't have any background to what we say we do. But anyway, this has been made for the person that only has maybe 45 to 60 minutes maximum in the gym, or that's the maximum they want to spend in the gym. And they only want to do that maybe 3, 4, maybe 5 days if they're having a good week. But most of the time, 3 to 4 days a week. And that's all they've got. They still want to maximize their results. They still want to progress as much as possible. They still want to have a physique that's, very impressive compared to most people. But they just don't want to put all their eggs in one basket and just be known as a gym head and not do anything else besides that. So, or probably because they're very career driven, they got family commitments, like there's things like that going on. So I just put this video together as well, and I just thought there's so many more people this is going to benefit, and that's why then it kind of spurred us on to making the course, and then here we are. So we're putting this as a bit of like a bit of a video to just give you an overview of it all, and then obviously if you want to find out more, you can have the free email crash course, or you can just jump in and get the course. But anyway, thought I'd just walk you through this first of all. So what we're going to do is I'm just going to show you the overview of it all. So we'll go ahead, and basically our promise, like what I want to make aware to you is why we're doing this in the first place, and also what you're going to get for it. So you will have a clear system and confidence that 45 to 60 minute sessions will guarantee you the results, because I feel like there's a hell of a lot of self-doubt when it comes to programming like this. We will give you the training program that combines progressive overload and metabolic drivers of hypertrophy to crack on with yourself, so that you don't have to worry about setting it up yourself correctly. You can either skip ahead and use it, so if you wanted to just obviously skip to the end of this video, you'll be able to see the program straight away, or you can learn the actual reasons behind why this actually works. I feel like with our coaching service, the way we do it is we want people to understand. We want you to ask questions, because if you understand why you're doing something, you're more likely to actually do it, rather than think, oh, there's probably no reason why I'm meant to do it this way, so I'll just kind of change it. And then maybe there is a reason. So definitely worth asking, right? And this presentation will explain the reason why behind it. That's what it's all about for us. So few questions to ask you first of all, right? Are you sick of doubting that your training is enough to actually create the physique you want? Everywhere you look online these days, you see coaches, athletes, bodybuilders training hours in the gym to achieve the results that you want. And then that leads you to think that you have to just replicate the same thing. Whereas most of the time, the drivers that actually create that physique are not the ones that need to be spent hours in the gym for. You simply don't have the time to, or want to, spend 2 or 3 hours in the gym every day, plus cardio on top of that, which people don't account for, to achieve the look that these guys have. This may lead to massive doubts around your own training, your ability to progress, maybe even sacking it off completely, maybe even thinking there's no point in me even going to the gym, it's not going to get the results I want. And asking yourself questions like, is 45 to 60 minute sessions actually enough? It's impossible to boost my steps due to working most of the day, and is there another way? Because so many people like myself, like I am sitting in a chair right now. Yes, I was a PT before. When I got into online coaching as well, like it was a good balance between being in person, doing events and stuff like that. Now, with where we're at in the business, I am literally sat on my chair most of the time, like at least 8 to 10 hours a day. So I understand when you say you can't push your steps up, you literally can't sometimes. But there are ways that we try to work around that as well. So we've got other tools to push expenditure up. And is there a better way to train and feel and perform at your best during work to still maximize progress without feeling completely wiped out? Another thing that people that don't work jobs where they actually care about, so they're not really focused on their work, it realizes how draining training can be when you actually push training to the maximum. So that's something we also take into consideration with the way we structure this program. So the massive problem that people face is the stress from work and personal life is taking a toll. The frustration with failed diets and inconsistent gym routines is getting people down, and maybe getting you down, and you're overwhelmed by conflicting training advice. Now, if this sounds like you so far, this is probably definitely going to be up your street, because nobody seems to offer relatable advice that actually suits your lifestyle online, and you constantly compare your training to the way that you used to probably before, when you had more time on your hands when you were younger, and just life wasn't as hectic as it probably is right now. So the solution: over the last 10 years, we've worked with hundreds of people where their main priorities remain outside of the gym. The systems we use to create these results are backed by science with a hint of logic, and experience inspired by our program and from just adapting to what people feed back to us over the years. You can skip to the end of this, like I said, to trial out the TET systems, which is time efficient training systems that we use, and you can instantly put that into your program. Or you can take 10 to 20 minutes to just listen to this video, or you can invest in the course and just really geek out and understand it, basically. So you can learn as we showcase exactly why this will and has worked to guarantee results with our clients over the years. So the implementation as well, just to touch on this quickly, this will give you a clear training plan. Like, this is what to expect, a clear training plan to implement into your current lifestyle. This program is built for someone that wants to make time to train 4 weeks per week with an optional 5th day as well. There are more efficient ways to train. If you only have 3 days a week, we can actually structure something completely different. Or if you want to combine this with overall functionality and CV fitness for health, there is other ways to go about this as well. This is more for physique development, definitely, compared to just what I just mentioned. So we will give you the nutrition calculator to give yourself specific calories and macros to follow as well. This is the bonus to watching the end of this video, and also the course as well will be involved in that. But the key is to have success whilst having a clear nutrition in place. Like, you're not going to get success otherwise, basically, is what I'm trying to say. So it needs to basically allow for that, as well as obviously the training being optimal. So we will talk about that as well. Now, I'm not going to dive deep into this now, because otherwise it will take like an hour to go through it, maybe more. That's how long the content's going to be when it's in depth and explained to you properly. There's going to be a lot of new terminology, which is all going to be broken down for you, just to go over a few things for you. The tempo, you probably understand this by now, something we will break down in more detail, as you can see here. The feeder sets is going to be explained to you, very different to warm-up sets, so I'm not going to touch on that right now. Working set is basically how close we push to failure. So most of the time, if we're asking you to do a working set, it will be expected to be to failure unless it's stated otherwise on the program. Top sets is always going to be the heaviest load of that specific exercise. Again, taking a failure, we're going to be using muscle damage as more of a driver during this set as well for hypertrophy. Back off set is going to be the usual, a lighter load following a top set. So not all the time, but most of the time that's when it's going to be structured. Again, we're going to use more metabolic stress, and obviously volume is going to be a little bit higher during this exact set as well. Priming set is always a debate, but the stronger you get, the more valuable priming sets do become. So people that don't really like priming sets tend to be on the weaker side, where they haven't really had to use them yet. So that is something that will definitely come into your plan in future as you progress. And progressive overload is the backbone behind the majority of what we use to basically manage hypertrophy and make sure we push it forward, continue to push you forward as well. So we talk about progressive overload, like what things need to stay as a constant, and the measurement tools that we use, and these things here, the execution, the tempo, intensity, have to stay the same. The hypertrophy needs as well, this is something quickly that we can touch on. So you need all of these things to grow. The resistance training, adequate protein, recovery, anabolic hormone environment, which is what bodybuilders tend to manipulate to push themselves forward a little bit more and a little bit faster. Sufficient calorie intake as well. It doesn't have to be a surplus, and we'll dive into that in another video, but most of the time for an optimal environment, yes it does. And progressive overload, which we touched on. But today, this is what we're going to be diving into. So we're going to be talking about the resistance training with the program, but also we're going to be talking about the drivers of hypertrophy as well. So the drivers of hypertrophy, the main drivers are the mechanical tension, which has been proven to be probably the most important, muscle damage, metabolic stress. Those are the top three if I was to pick any to really control. Hormonal response or environment is very important as well, especially if you haven't got a good baseline. For male, if your testosterone is on the lower side, you're going to find it difficult. And neural adaptations as well, which is something we talk about more on the skill level of exercise execution. So that is something, again, that we'll discuss in more depth. But as you can see here, like, this is how we pair them up in terms of where to put them in the program, where to focus. So mechanical tension is a lot more with training closer to failure. Muscle damage is using more top heavy sets, which is why there's a massive debate between having to lift heavy, quote unquote, but it is a driver of hypertrophy. So if you are going to do that, it's definitely worth doing. And metabolic stress is where we really use that tool, especially during these types of sessions where we're short on time. So not going to dive into detail on these now, but you can obviously go through that on the course if you want to find out more, or you don't need to understand it. You can just do it yourself if you want to follow the program. Okay, so the intensity techniques that we do use as well: drop sets, cluster sets, tempo manipulation, supersets, rest pause, partials. Those are going to be the main ones used here. And where intensifiers actually help in terms of hypertrophy response is more so on the metabolic stress side. Yes, it's still going to be involved in mechanical tension and muscle damage, but most of the time it's going to be metabolic stress. So this is just breaking down quickly now the actual, basically the way it's structured for you, and how those intensifiers can be used, and for you to fully understand them. Now, where the TET systems, the time efficient training systems, are actually made up of. What does it actually mean? What are the methods we actually use? Now, this is one of them. The high calorie burn per minute, right? Something we always take into account. But when you're looking at tools to drive expenditure up, especially if your goal is fat loss or you're looking to drop body fat, then there's only so much you can use. There's only so many tools you can use when time is limited, right? So you're not going to be looking at the neat options. So for those of you that understand expenditure, you're probably looking at BMR, which is the majority, but it's very hard to control. Then you've got NEAT, which is another massive chunk. Normally the biggest chunk, unless you're doing a ton of training, right? Direct training, that is. So we're not going to be able to really control this if you're stuck at a desk all day. So steps isn't going to be an option to push that up. General activity is not going to be an option because you're stuck at the desk. Increasing body weight is not the goal, so we're not going to be looking to do that. And general housework, hopefully you're not in a position where you have to do that or need to do that really as much. So NEAT is not really the option that we're going to use to drive. We're going to be mainly controlling our expenditure with EAT, so exercise, activity, thermogenesis. So we're going to be utilizing shorter rest periods to make sure there's more active direct training actually taking place during the workout time. Sport, if there is ever an opportunity for you to actually, enjoy sport outside of this is only if you're already doing sport or you like sport. You don't have to do sport, but it's again another way to add in expenditure in a very short amount of time where you'll burn a lot of calories, so you push expenditure up. Direct cardio, and I mean more so HIIT cardio. Yes, you can do less cardio, but if you're on the spectrum where time is the most essential thing to you, which it is, and it should be for most people. Unfortunately, most people don't see it that way. But yeah, you're going to need to focus on high calorie burn per minute, exercises, and choices of machines to actually do your cardio as well. And training intensifiers, why it is so essential for us to use this during this process. It will be deeper during the phase planner as to when we will actually use this, but for you to understand right now and to understand the training intensifiers behind it all, that's why we put it into this program here. So yeah, that's another way that we actually use one of the methods of the time-efficient training systems that we've got. Now, mapping the phases, you need to build a realistic timeline to actually achieve your goal. Most of you listening to this that struggle with time, probably because you're career-driven or you've got other things outside of the gym that you need to focus on, you're probably very goal-orientated, and you probably do come from the mindset where you are, that all or nothing mentality, something that I used to identify with, and I used to be proud that I was like, I'm an all or nothing person, until someone I respected highly, he's known as the Honest Life Coach, and he told me that it was a weak mentality. And it's the first time that someone ever told me that the all or nothing mentality was weak, because I always thought it was strong, and that's probably why I wanted it as part of my identity. And basically he broke it down and explained that what you're saying is you can do one thing very, very well and everything else very poorly, and that's kind of why we want to break this down with a clear strategy here to show you that yes, work may be the most important thing, your business may be the most important thing, your family may be the most important thing, but that doesn't mean that your physique has to suffer because you can no longer spend 2 to 3 hours in the gym training like you used to before. Let's have a system in place where you can actually still do that and have a phase planner in place where there are seasons and phases that you go through where yes, sometimes things will change in terms of you have to be a little bit stricter during fat loss phases. You've got way more freedom and flexibility during a slight surplus or a slight gaining phase where you're actually trying to improve and grow into the physique that you want. So that is something to really focus on and build out that phase planner. And we will show you here, like this is kind of like a rough estimate of, I'd say the majority of people will go through this really. When they first start with us, they need to rebuild their metabolism, get things checked, get things in a good place, get hormones checked. Like that'll be the beginning. And then we'll probably go through a body recomp phase where you'll be so new to the stimulus of training that we do, like our style of training, that you will still be able to grow despite being in a slight calorie deficit, where you are clearly, if you're in a deficit, you're going to be losing body fat. So you'll have that sort of ideal effect where you lose body fat, you gain muscle, and you can see that within the first 6 to 10 weeks. And then you need to prioritize depending on any events, any holidays, any things like that that's coming up, and then you want to focus on obviously picking those checkpoints and those dates out, and then building the phase plan around that. If that means over the short term the most important thing to you is probably gaining muscle, then yes, spend time reversing the food up, bringing it into a good place, getting into a slight surplus, a gaining phase, mapping out the rate of gain so that you know exactly where you need to get to and what's realistic. Then plan out the fat loss phase to trim it all back and just reveal all of that muscle that you've built and the physique you've built. So that is the way we look to do it, and that is probably the backbone that most of you can just use. But for us, obviously, what we do is we map it out properly in line with the training phases as well, because a lot of people forget that, yes, it's not just all about the nutrition and controlling the phase of body composition, but also the training phase that you're going through as well, and matching that up well with that, depending on what you've got coming up. And yeah, the other thing as well is mapping out your days. You know, a lot of people are just unprepared. They just haven't planned. And if you've prepared to fail, prepare to fail. If you fail to prepare, you prepare to fail. Okay? So this is an example of like late night training on the left. You've got the fasted training on the middle, and then you've got midday training here. Now, this is something we've drawn out for someone before, and as you can see, it's all dependent on them. So it's using the habits they've already got installed. And that's why you may look at this, you may be able to pick it apart and say, well, that's not going to be perfect. That's not great, you know. But the smallest movements away from what your current day already is the best way to make change and consistently improve in the long term. If you go and try and have this massive switch up in what you do, most people fail. That's just the facts. So start with the smallest sort of change and build towards the future you want and how you want your day to look. So that is what I would recommend. That's how I would map out the day, so I know exactly when I'm eating, exactly when I'm planning to eat. And obviously things come up. It's life, you know. It's not going to be perfect all of the time, but at least it's something to go off where you know you're at least working your way towards the day that you actually want, and you have a plan and structure in place. So the TET strategy, actually summarized, is going to be 1 to 2 progressive overload exercises. And what we mean by this is you're going to be really, really focusing on being optimal with your rest periods here, not rushing it at all, as if you had all the time in the world to train, and just taking that set to absolute failure every single time and progressing on it every single week. You should see those numbers going up, providing that execution tempo, and everything else is standardized. So that is the first part of the system. Then we chase a different stimulus for progression with the other exercises via the metabolic stress and mechanical tension drivers of hypertrophy. So that's what I talked about there in terms of using other methods that's going to be a lot more time efficient. Then you want to ensure a high calorie burn per minute to maximize the progress we can make in the gym, especially when chasing fat loss. You need to strategically structure the exercise selection and order to allow for a safe and fast session whilst reducing the fatigue carried outside of the gym. Something people forget to miss. They forget to actually think about when programming this for people that are either CEOs, business owners, or people that are very, very career driven. You cannot have the same split that most people do, because you actually care about your work and you need your brain to be in a state where it can function. So yeah, you need to program the weekly split around your busy days in work and to push performance both inside and outside the gym. So set your expectations. Remember that progress is not always linear. However, you must do all you can to force adaptation. Not every week will see an increase in load, but if you do everything in your control outside of the gym, you will see progression over time. That is the secret to seeing change and developments in your physique. So if you want to trial this out, now I'm going to leave this on a bit of a cliffhanger here. If you want to actually get the program, then all you need to do is get involved. The email course is going to be there for you. It's going to give you a crash course on everything and condense down just what I said. And we will have this course available for you as well if you did want to give it a shot. So any questions from you, please comment below, let us know. Or you can get in touch with us at info@pbfitnessacademy.com, or you can click the link below and actually get that email course for free anyway. So thank you very much. Make sure you subscribe, and I will see you soon. Thank you.